and welcome to our visit to the ancient historic town of Winchelsea in East Sussex. I hope you like what we put together. Why not subscribe so you don't miss any of our further travels? You can find Winchelsea in the southeast of England in the historic county of East Sussex. It's a mere 9 miles from Hastings and 3 miles from Rye, and you may want to check out Battle and Bodiam Castle if you're in the area. But we're here to look at Winchelsea, an ancient town in the Cinque Port Confederation, which is served by a railway station which is just over half a mile outside town, and buses from Hastings and Rye. So without further ado, let's take a look at Winchelsea, and you'll notice the town sign contains the emblem of the 12th century Cinque Ports, although Winchelsea was one of the 2 ancient towns, along with Rye. And in the centre of town is the Church of St Thomas, with work starting on the church in 1288 and the stone coming from Caen in Normandy. And Winchelsea as we know it today was established by royal charter in 1281 by Edward I, and Winchelsea's history is shaped by the sea, and St Thomas's shows the scars of that, from the French raids in the 14th century as part of the 100 Years' War, and neglect to the changing landscape which rendered Winchelsea's harbour redundant. And it wasn't until the 1850s when the church was restored, so we think it's worthwhile taking a look inside. And the first thing that catches your eye are the amazing stained glass windows and the vaulted ceiling. And those stained glass windows are once again a relatively new addition, gifted to the church from 1929 to 1933. And then, as often catches my eye, is the church organ, and this is a wonderful looking creation, once again from the 30s, 1931 I believe, and I've added the music for effect. It wasn't actually playing while we were here. And as we step out into the cemetery, there's one gravestone we're particularly interested in, and that's Terence Allen Milligan, better known as Spike Milligan, that comedy genius that leaves us with a smile. On his headstone in Gaelic is the phrase that translates, "I told you I was ill." But if you think I'm getting away with just one grave, you're wrong. As you know, Janice loves the cemetery, so we wander through. And you may have noticed Winchelsea is laid out on a grid pattern. We're on the High Street where it meets Thomas Street and Castle Street. And this is where we can start to dig into a little of the history of Winchelsea. And we'll start with Firebrand House. Those open doors to the basement lead to a 13th century vaulted cellar. And it's not the only one we'll find in Winchelsea. And just along the High Street we'll find Winchelsea Farm Kitchen, which does a mean hot chocolate, we're told. And we're passed by Barrack Hill Square, and we'll be back shortly. We're heading down towards Strand Hill, and it's here you can find one of the town's existing medieval gates, Strand Gate. And this 13th century gatehouse would have been about a third higher and featured 2 portcullises, and the city walls would have run up to it. This would have led down the hill to Winchelsea Harbour. I think what I find amazing now is it still stands and it's still regularly used by traffic. And that's a view of the Romney Marsh all the way round to the East Sussex coastline. Did you catch our Romney Marsh road trip? I'll pop a link in the corner. And I'm also going to create an East Sussex road trip, including Winchelsea. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss that. When the Strand Gate was built, it would have been rendered white. It must have looked like an impressive entrance into Winchelsea. However, once the River Brede started to silt up, the importance of Winchelsea faded away. But as it is now, Winchelsea remained a popular place to live. One notable resident, Ellen Terry, the renowned Victorian actress, and her partner Henry Irving lived here at Tower Cottage from 1892, and another of those 13th century cellars below Stone Cottage on the corner of Barrack Square, and this is where the Duke of Wellington barracked some of his troops during the Napoleonic Wars. We're going to head around the corner now to Mill Lane. And if you wonder how I've gleaned so much information, including facts about Five Chimneys here, I'll drop you a link to winchelsea.com in the description below. It's here you'll find information about the cellar tours that are available. And here's another one, built under what would have been the Salutation Arms. And this cellar, like so many in the town, predate the building that was constructed above it, and date from the 13th or 14th century, and built to store goods for either import or export. Imagine these full of wine from Gascony. Another interesting building is the Town Well, built in 1851 at the expense of Thomas Dawes, gifted it to the town, and it was in use until 1896 when water was piped to the town. And you notice I keep referring to Winchelsea as the town. Well, it is a town, a petite one, but it has a mayor nonetheless. And now we find Court Hall, one of the oldest buildings in Winchelsea, and parts of it date to the origins of the town, although restored heavily in the 19th century. It was once the town jail, and is now home, during the summer months, to the town museum. And now the town's pub, the New Inn, an 18th century coaching inn. Now I didn't get a chance to pop in, but if you watch our forthcoming video on Rye, then you may understand why. Another good reason to subscribe. I also want to take the opportunity to say there's no official town car park. However, you will find there are plenty of places to park sensibly in town. And Winchelsea has links to John Wellesley, the founder of the Methodist movement. Here he created a chapel and preached his last open air sermon under the Wellesley tree just outside St Thomas's. And just across the road from John Wellesley's chapel is the remains of the Blackfriars barn. And below here is another medieval vaulted cellar. The Blackfriars or Dominican order and the Grey Friars or Franciscans lost their properties in the dissolution of the monasteries in the middle of the 16th century. It's from here you get great views over the countryside to the west of Winchelsea. But we're not quite finished with the town yet. We've got to discover another of the town's medieval gates. And we've headed back towards St Thomas's Church and turning left down Higham Green. At the end of Higham Green, you'll reach School Hill, and from here it's a relatively short walk down to North Street. It's from here you'll get views over the countryside to Rye in the distance. And it's just a short walk along North Street until you reach Pipewell Gate. And that brings this tour to an end. I hope you've liked what we put together. Please give us a like, that'd really help us. Thanks again, stay safe, stay well, and happy travels.